History is often said to be written by the winners. But when you've lost everything, you realize the losers are the ones who have to study it the most. Because for us, history isn't a trophy. It's a map of every landmine that we've ever stepped on. It's an inescapable, constant truth, one that can never be changed, a snapshot in time that holds the answer to the age-old question: why? Why am I back here? Why is this suitcase still sitting by the door? Why am I starting over at 26? A story's end is only as good as its beginning. And this is mine. This isn't just a recollection of events or a list of mistakes. It's the making and the breaking of the man who sits before you today. From the day I was given a name that wasn't mine, to the nights I spent in rooms where the windows didn't open, just trying to keep my mind from folding in on itself. Today, we face it. All of it. The vices, the faults, the survival. Today, we face the history. Oh man, this is the worst part. This is the worst part, dude. It's easy to film like all the little intro stuff because I don't have to talk. I don't have to be like an active participant. But the second that it's pointed at me and I have to like speak and like put my thoughts together, I just freak out, man. I don't know how to start these ever. So I just like, I'll turn the camera on and just sit here and like think about like what I'm gonna start with, and I never know what to do. So I'm just gonna roll with this one. It is what it is. So yeah, today's just kind of, I guess, about my history, my backstory, things I've kind of went through leading up till now, and kind of why I feel like I am the way I am, why I respond the way I do. Because ultimately, in order to know yourself, you have to know where you came from too, and I think that's a very important thing to talk about. A lot of times we don't like to talk about our past and we don't like to talk about those things, but it is important that we do that because I can't run away from it. It's stuff that happened to me, and if I want to make peace of this situation and make peace of myself, I have no choice but to face everything that has come before this. And with like a lot of stuff in this series, I don't really know how I'm gonna cover it per se, because like I said, I want to be very open. I want to be very transparent about everything, but there is a lot, and I don't want every episode to be like an hour and a half long just explaining everything in super detail. So there's probably going to be stuff I skip over, there's going to be stuff that I forget, and maybe I'll remember down the line, I don't know, but at some point everything will be kind of out on the table. But I think I'm gonna just sort of run with what comes out naturally, and we'll kind of see what goes from there. So I guess we'll start all the way at the beginning. I was born July 6, 1999 in California. I was born to my mom. I don't think I'm gonna use names for their sake, but I was adopted as a kid, like baby, like a couple days out of the hospital kind of thing. So I never really met her, obviously, except for like the moment I was born, but I had never met her. And yeah, I was adopted and still in California. And I kind of grew up. I had a older brother who was their biological son. And then there was me, and so there's two of us. I grew up in the LDS church, and yeah, I'd say for the most part, as a child, early years was great. I from what I understand, I know I was like super premature, so I was a super tiny baby. I was like 4 pounds and some change, and I just kind of looks like I just was sort of like a fun-loving little kid. Unfortunately, this is what I was talking about. I don't know how I'm going to cover some of this stuff. So, like, fortunately, I'll just say that something occurred early in my childhood that kind of changed a lot of things for me. And when that did happen, my memories from there are very, very scattered. I will say up until probably like my middle school and high school, I remember most of like my childhood. But a lot of it's kind of blacked out, I won't lie. But, I played soccer as a kid, and I did tap dance, pretty much through all of elementary school, middle school, and, soccer I played all the way up until I graduated. I stopped dancing in high school, obviously, for obvious reasons. Just sort of like a fun-loving kid. I very much had a lot of questions, though, when it came to my adoption. Obviously, I'm biracial, and the family that I was adopted to was not, so I very much kind of knew early on that something didn't quite add up, but I didn't really understand the concept of adoption. I didn't really understand what that meant. And I didn't really know, like, the entire gravity of the situation, right? So my biological mom was 15 years old when she had me. So obviously, taking care of a kid that young, it's not really a viable option. But when you're a kid, you don't really understand that, right? Because I hadn't been 15 yet. I don't really know what that means. All I know is that she didn't, keep me, and now I'm, with this family, and they want me, and like. But early on as a kid, I definitely started to do a lot of people pleasing, because I already had felt like I had been sort of given up on even before I had a chance to realize what that even meant. I did a lot of things to please people, if whoever people wanted me to be, if that meant that I got to be their friend, or got to play with them at recess, or didn't get in trouble, or didn't do this, then I would do whatever it took to be that person, right? And that was something, like, as a kid that I very vividly remember. Anytime I got in trouble, or someone said they were disappointed in me, or someone said they didn't want to be my friend anymore, that would tear me up. Like, I remember one time in elementary school, one of my friends said he didn't want to be friends with me anymore. This was like 5th grade, and I just remember, like, it literally set me off for the entire day, like, because abandonment had been like such a prevalent theme for me early on as a kid. And this is no, like, against my adoptive parents, because they did not really treat me any differently. I didn't feel like outcasted, but by fault of them, that was just like my own. As a kid, you just don't understand, right? Like, it never makes sense. You always have questions, because I never had communication with her, or my birth father, and from what I understand, he wasn't in the picture when I was born. And I never really grasped that concept. It's something that troubled me deeply all the way through high school, until I was an adult. But I left a lot of early groundwork, I'd feel, with what happened in my childhood. On top of that, it kind of created me to be the ultimate people pleaser, and all I wanted to do was keep people around, because my biggest fear had always been rejection and abandonment. Moving forward to like middle school, I would say that is when I really started to notice, well, not even really notice, but that's when I feel like me as a whole kind of completely changed. I don't really know what the driving factor was. I just know that like there was a lot going on at home. I felt a lot of pressure at that time to pretty much be like the best kid I could be because of what was going on in our house at the time. And you know, it just, I guess it subconsciously tying that with my already people pleasing nature and fear of abandonment, I think kind of was a perfect storm to the mental health struggle that started when I was in middle school. You know, I like I said, I used to be very like spunky, very fun loving. I used to want to go out and hang out with people. I used to make friends very easily. But in middle school, I isolated a lot. I didn't want any new friends. I only really hung out with the people that I had gone to school with before. Like in elementary school, I had like a core group of like 3 or 4 friends, and that's pretty much who I rode with through all of middle school for 6th and 7th grade, because I was homeschooled in 8th. But I remember 6th grade, I was getting bullied a little bit. Like kids would like tear up my papers and throw stuff in my bag, and like, I don't know, I just remember feeling very lonely in elementary or middle school. Even with my friends and everything, like they were kind of all moving on, you know, because it's not like you're in the same class all day long anymore. You know, you have different periods, they're hanging out with different people, they're making new friends, they're doing new things. And again, I kind of felt like I was losing that, and I just remember feeling very lonely in middle school. In my 8th grade year, I was homeschooled by my request, but also just because like the school that I was going to was really not great. And so I was homeschooled 8th grade, and I think that really is what, like, I never should have asked for that, but I know why I asked for it was because I didn't want to be, like, anywhere. Being at school, I always felt anxious, but I didn't know what, keep in mind, also, I like to say, all of this, I had no idea what it was. I just knew that I felt sad all the time. I knew I felt lonely, and I knew I felt, like, this feeling in my chest. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to call it. You know, a lot of it felt kind of manifested into guilt, I would say, because I felt guilty that, like, I'm doing something wrong. I'm, you know, like, I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. And so it would just, now I know that was anxiety and, like, my depression, and we'll come to later find out bipolar, but, I didn't really understand what that was at the time. So yeah, my 8th grade year I was homeschooled, and then obviously I was isolated. I mean, I never left the house. I had my tap dance classes and my soccer stuff, but that was it. You know, I didn't really hang out with my friends that much anymore because I didn't see them anymore. I had one friend that I'd been friends with since kindergarten that I would still go to his house for like sleepovers and stuff occasionally, but for the most part, I didn't see any of my friends. And I think that was really jarring for me because going into high school, you know, I went from like being not really popular, like, because I would say I was very well known 6th and 7th grade. Like, you know, everyone was cool with me. Like, everything was, I don't know, not that it mattered. I could care less, but I would say like I had more connections and more associations in middle school. So when I came into high school, my friends obviously had done a whole bunch of different things over their 8th grade year and the summer. And so when I came in, I didn't really like no one really acknowledged me. I didn't really know, oh, there's a lot of new faces, a lot of people I hadn't seen before. Most of my friends had already made new friends and had a new group, and like, again, especially in high school, like that was really hard because, you know, these are people that I had been friends with pretty much my entire life, and now like I barely even see them, barely even talk to them, like they don't even acknowledge me really. And again, this isn't like, I wasn't mad at them. I wasn't like, oh, they're fake, like anything like that. Again, I had the wherewithal and foresight to know that like, hey, I hadn't been around for a year. Life moves on. I understood that from a very early age, that life is going to keep going no matter what. Pretty much all through school, I was a very good student. I was very smart by like school standards. You know, I got A's, B's, like I had never gotten a C ever. Honor roll, like I was a very good student. Homework on time, all that. moved to high school, suddenly my grades tanking. My freshman, sophomore, junior year, I did good. Like, I still passed. Like, I was never in danger. But I definitely got C's in math, and, I was late on assignments, and I was, had gotten like a D on a test, and like, just uncharacteristic for me, which at the time, again, wasn't raising red flags, because at this point I had been going through this for like 4 or 5 years. It just felt like a natural progression of how I had already felt. And like, when you get into high school, and again, this kind of comes into like my people pleasing and my chameleon, I guess, personality trait, is where you get, especially in high school, like, high school is the time where you want to fit in, you want to explore different things, you want to, like, don't want to be on the out, you want to be on the in. And so, like, depending on who I was around in high school, depending on what I liked, depending on how I acted, I had, a couple of new friends that I had actually made my sophomore year and my junior and senior year, and like, they were goofing off in class, and I never would have done that. I used to be like a super goody two-shoes. I mean, people used to hate me because I was so like, raise my hand, ask to go to the bathroom kind of thing. But like, you get around people that aren't the best influences. Not that these were bad people, because again, the people that I made friends with, like, to this day, I owe so much to them, because they did help me, especially in a very dark time, like post high school. But you get around people like that, and you get around people that are very different from things that you've already believed in, but when you want to fit in, you're gonna do whatever it takes. And that's been like a mantra for my entire life, up until this point, is pretty much, if I want you to be my friend, I'm gonna do whatever it takes for you to be my friend, and never like not be friends with me. So if you like music, this type of music, I like that type of music now. Even if I don't, I'm gonna like it, because it's easier to survive that way. I was always tired, because it wasn't just like I didn't just need sleep at that point. I needed a lot more, but I didn't know that, because of what had happened at such an early age. Like, there was a lot of things that I needed to work through that I never did. And I suppressed all of that, and it was just compounding, and I was becoming an actual time bomb in real time, and I had no idea at this point, but the pressure kept building and building and building and building and building. And then my senior year, I think, was like just the tipping point of everything. Most people, their senior year, they're happy to move on, they're happy to get out of where they're going, and especially because, like, I think it was the last episode, I had mentioned about Ridgecrest, and how everyone here feels very stuck. Like, when you're growing up, your only dream is to leave Ridgecrest. So those that left Ridgecrest, like, you envy them. They're going to college, they're doing things. That's the plan, right? Well, for me, my senior year, like I said, I grew up in the Mormon church, and at that time, they had just changed the mission age to 18, and it was never a forced expectation, but there's a lot of pressure for young men to go on missions at 18 years old, and if you don't, there is a stigma behind that kind of stuff, and unfortunately, not for everyone, but there is, kind of, people look at you a little weird if you're not on your mission at least by like 19 or 20. At this point, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I will say that pretty much my entire high school period, and on, my faith wavered a lot. I didn't know what I believed in, and it would have been that was something that I wrestled with a lot, because I could have gone on a mission, and I could have, preached these things, but I, in my heart, did not know if I truly felt the way that they wanted me to preach these things. And there was, especially given how I was feeling, and like, I was always in this dark mindset, like the darkest mindset, and so it's hard to feel like that light, and it's hard to feel those kind of things when you're in that kind of mindset. And so, but again, like I said, I did not want people to think badly on me. I did not want to disappoint people. So as senior year kept getting closer and closer, and graduation kept getting closer and closer, I didn't know like how I was gonna tell people that I didn't want to go on a mission, or that I wasn't gonna go. And then, my goal also was to play soccer in college, and again, because I didn't believe in myself nearly enough as much as I should have, like I tanked that possibility for myself. And so when I graduated, I was left with no plan, except I was still in Ridgecrest and wasn't going on a mission. I wasn't going to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. So post high school is where I think a lot of things that define kind of who I am and where I am happened. To say that since I've graduated back in 2017 till now has been anything less than a rocky road would be a very, very minor exaggeration. Pretty much from the get-go, things got bad quick. At the time, I had a girlfriend. This was my very first girlfriend ever. And that relationship was not good at all, because I didn't know how to love, period. I was not ready to be in a relationship at all. My concept of what love has been shaped by everything that I had gone through and everything that I had experienced, and I was in such a bad state of mind at this point that like this was like my peak like mental breakdown was in this period of time. And so I had no business being involved in a relationship, and I had no idea how to love. I did not know how to display that in a healthy way. I did not know how to receive that in a healthy way. It was foreign to me to receive it at first, and I did everything I could, which was really odd to me, but I did everything I could in the start to actively reject all of that. And then when it wasn't there anymore, that just sent me, and I didn't understand like why it was gone, but I had spent all this time actively like rejecting it and actively giving reasons for it to not be there. So when it wasn't there, then that made me feel even worse. And that's like, it gave me a identity for it, I guess. It no longer was my inner self feeling like guilt or feeling like this was just my own cause. Like, I realized that it's my brain, like it's things outside of my control. Like no matter how hard I tried to be better or how hard I tried to be happier or more appreciative or more this, it's almost like the worse it got. And now I finally understood at least a little bit why. However, at this time I also started, and I just want to put relationship, however, did open my eyes to, but I also started self-harming. Mental illness was for the first time. I had a name. That was for the very long road. Now I can now confidently say I have been, I don't even know how many years now, in remission of that, which is something that I very, very much pride myself on. But yeah, so I started self-harming, and it started very innocently, and then it kind of just, because I was feeling so much, like it literally felt like at any given second I was just going to explode. Like I literally felt like a nuke, and I felt so much, but I couldn't express any of that because nobody would understand why I felt that way. And again, there was things that I hadn't talked about and that I hadn't faced, and so I couldn't even put feelings on it because I didn't even really process it yet. And so I just felt so much all the time that the only like outlet that I could find, or that I felt like I could find, was to indulge in that behavior. And it quickly became out of hand really quick, and that kind of led to my first mental health hospitalization. My first mental health hospitalization was here in California, and That was the first time I'd ever been diagnosed. I was diagnosed with, it was like, I think just, I don't know if it was just depression and anxiety and PTSD, I think was like the three. And I was in there for, I want to say about 5 days, something like that. And when I got out, I had, started to take antidepressants. I was on Zoloft at first and Remeron, and that, I had tried to start therapy, and again, it didn't really pan out. And I went through a lot of those periods, where I would be okay and I'd want to, get everything figured out, and then I'd start feeling those things and I'd start going through those emotions, and I'd start getting to that point where I had to talk about certain things and I couldn't, and it scared me and I retreated. And unfortunately I got a lot of addictions through that time, and it felt like the only way that I guess that I could cope with everything. All in all, I've been hospitalized, I think 4 or 5 times. My most recent one was back in 2022, I believe, or 23. And so it's been a couple years, and that is one thing about myself that I will say that I am very proud of, is through all of these experiences, like the last time that this happened was back when I was hospitalized, and I ended up in a very similar situation that I am now. And at that time, I needed to be hospitalized. This time, in a much more explosive and a much more meaningful connection that I had lost, I am now doing this completely, by myself, like mentally. I don't need that extra help, because I have learned so much about my own mind, and I've been okay with sitting with my own thoughts for so long that I've almost kind of learned to, and I hate to say this because I don't want people to think that when I say this that I think that I'm cured, or that I think that you can cure yourself, because I know I still struggle with it every day. My biological mom actually had bipolar, and so they never really tested me for that, which I don't understand why. I guess I didn't really have that information until much later in my life. And I finally got tested for that. It made a lot more sense. Everything made a lot more sense. And I think now learning to, again, coping mechanisms and things that I can use for what I actually had made a big difference as well. But yeah, during that time, there was it got bad. My mental health got really bad. I mean, it would be to the point that I self-harmed for, upwards of 6 years almost, on and off. And numerous different antidepressants and anxiety medications and sleep medications, and different hospitals in North Carolina and in California, and different therapists, and starting over here, starting over there. It was a very long road. It was a lot of ups and downs, and there was a lot of times, that I, did have attempts on my own life, and, thankfully here I am still. But, when you're in that, that's the last thing that you want to think about. But at the same time, had I not gone through any of this, right, had I not experienced anything that I did, I would not be the person that I am today. I think that's what made this situation so, I guess, world-ending for me, was because for these last 3 years was probably the most stable I feel like I've ever been. It's been the closest to, pure happiness I feel like I've had. And it was, the first time that I really had, an actual future that I could envision, that I could tangibly feel like I could achieve, and that I was seeing actively happen in real time. A lot of times I would escape in my mind. That was my place to hide, to come up with new ideas, to escape everything going on around me. And I would imagine these grand plans, grand things, but in reality, I never put action towards it because I never had the ability or energy or strength or wherewithal in myself to do that. But not only did I believe in myself in these last 3 years, I could see it happening. I could see, like, everything that I had gone through was to lead me for this moment, so I thought. And that's what I guess makes it feel like my entire world has kind of fallen apart and crashed and burned, was because of stuff like that. And to recap, I guess, everything into one little package, I'd say that the things that I went through in my struggle with my mental health and my constant need to be accepted and to please everyone around me has impacted every aspect of my life. And I think that's why I continue to make the same mistakes that I do, because especially when I get involved with somebody, knowing how I've felt my entire life, like I don't ever want somebody to not feel accepted by me, or to not feel loved by me, or to not feel this or that. And so anytime that I fail in that, it almost triggers me, both consciously and subconsciously, to just revert back to the same behaviors. And I think a lot of that has shaped my meaning of what love means and what I want, because I haven't really had a chance to think about what it is that I want to do, because everything that I've wanted to do has kind of coincided with somebody else's life, like my dream has always been somebody else's dream. And so to ask the question, like, who I am or what I want, like, I know bits and pieces about myself. Like, I know that I am very accepting, I am very patient, I am very empathetic, people pleasing, I can be manipulative, I am an overthinker, I am very emotional and sensitive at times, but I'm also very cold and distant at times. I'm definitely introverted, far more than I think is healthy to be, and I prefer to be alone when it comes to certain things, but I also prefer to just be around one person. And so like there are things about myself that I know, but there's a lot of things that I don't. Like, I don't know what I want to do, I don't know what interests I really have outside of a few things. When I'm not in a relationship, or if I'm not in some kind of dynamic, like a blank empty blob floating around, just kind of existing until the next thing comes around to latch onto, and then once I find it, then great. And I hate that. And so those are just a few of the things that I think I've kind of identified, at least today, through this conversation. I know that was a lot. I'm going to try to keep this not as long, hopefully, in the future, but this should be the last kind of, like, I guess, foundational episode until we kind of just get into, like, the everyday stuff. I do owe you guys an update with, like, everything else going on, because I haven't had a chance to talk about anything that I'm actively doing to try to get out of this situation, and sort of what's changed and stuff like that. So I think the next one after this is just going to be like a kind of chill, just update you guys on what's going on, and then I don't know, we'll figure it out from a day at a time. But thank you guys for watching and listening and letting me share who I am and what's happened to me. And hopefully my story can, in one way or another, make you feel like there's some solidarity there, or maybe that you are like, wow, I'm glad that my life is not as bad as I thought it was. I don't know, but appreciate you guys. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in a day. If not, I'll see you at some point. But yeah, take care, big dog. How?